Good morning, everyone. My name is John Schaefer. I am the Associate Director for Graduate Student Success and Professional Development with the Graduate School. Welcome to our first of two career pathway sessions focused on graduate students in the Alvarez College of Business. I'm thrilled to have our guest speaker and to introduce him today. As Karl, as I was reading over your bio, there was something towards the end that actually made me chuckle. And I will definitely be asking a question about that. But let me go ahead and formally introduce our guest speaker. Karl Miller Lugo is Vice President of Advancement and Alumni Engagement at the University of Texas at San Antonio, where he serves as a member of the President's Cabinet and University Leadership Council and oversees an operation comprising university and athletics development, corporate and foundation engagement, donor engagement, alumni engagement, and the Alumni Association operations and advancement services. Prior to joining UTSA, Karl was a vice president with the international fundraising consulting firm Ben Swaley Fleshner for 4 years, where he focused on campaign planning and management, major and principal gifts, advancement assessments, and building processes for comprehensive fundraising strategy and accountability. Karl spent 10 years at the University of Texas at Austin and finished his UT Austin career as executive director for fundraising, where he oversaw principal, major, and annual giving programs and led the successful completion of the $3 billion Campaign for Texas in partnership with campus chief development officers. With over 32 years in development and higher education, Karl has held senior leadership positions at public and private universities. An active member of the Council for the Advancement and Support of Education, Karl was a member of the inaugural CASE Minority Advancement Institute class. He currently serves on the U.S.-Canada Council, has chaired 3 district conferences, served as the CASE Commission on Philanthropy, the CASE Diversity Recruitment Advisory Group, and the faculty of several conferences, He was awarded the CASE Crystal Apple Award for Teaching Excellence and holds the CASE Laureate distinction. He earned his bachelor's degree in public relations and Spanish from Western Kentucky University and an MBA from the Golden Ford College of Business at Western Kentucky University. Karl is a native of Puerto Rico. He lived in Kentucky for 28 years and has lived in Texas for 18. He is an Ironman triathlon finisher and the proud holder of a doctorate degree from Disney University. His wife of 32 years, Jennifer, is program director for child and adolescent psychiatric services at Austin State Hospital, and they have 2 children, Tristan Chase, a 26, a high school teacher, and Carson McLean, 21, a senior liberal arts major at the University of Texas at Austin. Please welcome UTSA's Vice President for Advancement and Alumni Relations, Karl Miller Lugo. Karl, it's so nice to have you.
John, thank you so much. What this group doesn't know is I can't say no to John Schaefer because he sat on my selection committee for this job. So I owe him a lot, and I'll probably never be able to pay it back. But it's great to be here, John.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I have to ask you about your doctorate from Disney University. So what is that? What does that entail?
Yeah, thanks for asking. And obviously, that's why I put it on there, because this is it always spurs the question. I participated in the Walt Disney World College program in the summer of 1989 while I was at Western Kentucky University in my undergraduate work. And they actually, so you work during the day in the parks, but then you actually have to go to class. There's a Disney University that we have to go to. And if you make it to all of your classes, you graduate with a doctorate degree. And if you miss a class or two, because they give you a little allowance, you get a master's degree. So I'm proud to say I made all my classes and got my doctorate. And when they have a graduation ceremony and you wear the Mickey Mouse ears with the tassel, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Okay, first of all, I love that. And secondly, there's this strong part of me that wants to do it.
I know, right?
Really, really. That sounds so amazing. So unique and so amazing. I grew up in Southern California, so spent a lot of time at Disneyland.
Oh yeah.
So yes, I am a big Disney fan. So that's really awesome. Um, but let's go to why everyone is here. Not about your doctorate, but about
Yeah.
your career experience in fundraising. Um, so starting with your education in Kentucky, did you know going in like in your bachelor's what you wanted to do for a career? So was the business fundraising your first choice, or were you kind of led into that career field?
Yeah, thank you for that. And by the way, thanks for all of you that are attending. And I do hold my MBA, and so happy to have many of the Alvarez College of Business folks here. Um, so, I got a public relations and Spanish degree. And John, my initial dream job was to work in Spanish public relations. I thought I'd either work maybe for a firm doing Hispanic, Latino public relations work, or get on in a corporate position in public relations, and focusing on the Hispanic Latino sector. And but it didn't happen. I graduated, actually didn't have a job when I first got out of college. So I did some odd and ends jobs until I got into higher education. And I know we're going to talk about that in a little bit, so I'll wait. But the short answer is no, I had this other track in mind, and life took me in a different direction.
That often happens with life. My dad received his bachelor's degree in geography and wanted to be a teacher. And he ended up as a vice president for credit card of two different banks in his career before he retired.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so if you can, give us a snapshot of your career path that led you to be Vice President of Advancement and Alumni Engagement at UTSA. I know we covered a little bit of it in your bio, but if you can kind of touch on some of those and what led you to where you are now.
You bet. And I'll go through them fairly quickly. But so as I said, when I graduated college, I didn't have a job at first. I actually did some manual labor work for the Department of Transportation in Kentucky. It was not very glamorous, but it, paid the bills for a while. I got a job with American Airlines as a ticket agent. Airport passenger service agent was the proper title. And I did that for 9 months. My thought there, John, was, I'll start, at the bottom as you do, and maybe I can work my way into, again, a public relations job at American Airlines. Um, I was dating my now wife at the time, and American was wanting to transfer me to a different airport, and there was no telling where in the country or the world I might end up. And to be honest, I knew we were going to get married, and I wanted to be close to her, and so I didn't take that opportunity and started looking for something else. I found my next opportunity then as an admissions counselor at Lindsey Wilson College, a small private college in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains in Kentucky, beautiful country. But that's how I got into higher education. I had been a really active student during my undergrad. I'd been on the student government. I'd served as a spirit master, which is kind of the university ambassador, student ambassador group. I'd been in a lot of different clubs and things. So I loved, the atmosphere in higher ed and being on a college campus. And so when I saw the ad for that job, I thought, that sounds fun. And I had a connection. And this is, maybe a lesson to all of us, but I had a person within my network that worked at that college, even though I'd really never heard of it or knew much about it. I called them and they helped me, get an interview, and then I got the job. So I became an admissions counselor there. I did that. I did that for 8 years and became director of admissions. I'm sorry, 6 years, became director of admissions there. And it was then that the president asked me if I'd consider moving into development. And all I knew about development, or thought I knew, was that those were the people that asked people for money. And I just thought, I don't think I can do that. And I told him as much. And the president reminded me that it's not that. It's about building relationships with people. And that the work that I was doing in admissions was that I was building relationships with students and their families. And so, and he thought that I had a real strength in that and asked me to consider the move. It came with a nice pay raise. And so I accepted that and I've never looked back. From there, I got a chance to work at my alma mater for 6 years. So I went to Western Kentucky University and worked in development, fundraising work. And then I took the leap, my wife and I, and our young son at the time, and moved to Texas. I got a job at the University of Texas at Austin in fundraising. Spent 10 great years there, finished their big campaign. And then, as you do in life, I was just ready for something new and was thinking, okay, this is a good time for us to consider maybe another move. And put myself in a couple of VP searches. And then I had again, a contact within my network that called me and said, "Hey, Karl, I heard from a friend that you are considering a move, and I'd love for you to think about being a consultant, a fundraising consultant." And it was something that was on my bucket list. I thought I'd want to try that at some point in my life, but I thought it would be really later in life. But here it came knocking, and I decided to explore it, and I took that leap. So I did fundraising consulting. I worked with 30 different clients, including UTSA, over the course of 4 years, all over the United States and even abroad. I had a client in Australia, and it was just a great experience. I often say to folks that that was my PhD in the field. And then that's what led me to UTSA. UTSA was actually one of my clients, and I had known about it, obviously, because I've been in Texas, but I had no experience with it. I knew Margie French, my predecessor, knew her well for probably a decade. And I came here and just fell in love with the place. And so I applied for the job and feel very fortunate to have gotten it.
Well, and that's where enter where I had the privilege of meeting you, who, for all those here, I was on a search committee at the time. I was stepping into the role as staff Senate chair. So university leadership asked me to sit on this vice president position search committee, as a representative of staff, and also a dual role because I'm also a two-time alum of UTSA. So
That's right.
it felt
That's
like
right.
they had a good representation of a little bit of both. And I got to know a lot of people on that search committee. Lisa Campos, I believe, was on that search committee, and the girl at the time that was the either vice president or president of the Alumni Association, have become friends with her. And yeah, it was a great experience. But I will tell you, I had colleagues in development in alumni that knew I was sitting on it, and you were already doing the consulting work,
Right.
and were very involved at UTSA. And every single person, like, if we had our choice, we want Karl.
Oh,
So,
thank you. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah, and you were definitely kind of I know, an easy pick for the search committee.
Thank you.
Okay, so we kind of already covered this. So you fell in love with higher ed, with admissions. Um, and so that's how you kind of got into the higher ed sandbox, and you left for a few years to be a consultant, but you still were consulting with universities.
That's right.
So even though you were working in the private sector, you were still consulting with education entities. So now that you've been in what the consulting, and then also now a vice president of advancement and alumni relations, what does the landscape of careers in fundraising look like? Like what type of, like, if I decided, well, I've enjoyed doing program development and engagement of graduate students for all these years. Now I want to work in development. What type of experience or transferable skills are employers looking for in that field?
So it runs the gamut. And let me say before I get into that real quickly that there's a I'm so glad to have this opportunity to kind of tell our advancement and development story, because it's one that a lot of people, some people don't even know it exists. And if they do know it exists, they have, some misperceptions about the work that we do. I think it's a true calling and a great profession, and there's tons of opportunity. The reality is that, universities cannot do the great work that they do just on tuition dollars alone. They need extra funding to be able to do their good work, and that's where we try to fill some of that gap. And so there's a ton of opportunity for folks that might be interested in this field. And John, going back to your question, our division, for example, has actually 6 different areas. We have development, which is what you would think of as the fundraising piece. These folks are relationship builders. They spend a lot of time, out with the public, one-on-one meetings with people, perhaps attending events, doing that kind of work. We have, and that's across all of our colleges, athletics, some of our centers. Then we have our donor engagement team, which is the team that really kind of puts together the events. They also do a lot of the stewardship. So if you give to UTSA, we hope that you will continue to do so. We hope it's a lifelong practice. But to do that, we need to make it a fun and an enjoyable experience for you. And this is the team that does that. So they're behind the scenes a lot of times, but they're doing a very important work in keeping our donors happy. We have an operations. You mentioned that I oversee operations and advancement services. That's the nerve center of our work. So they are accepting the gifts. They're making sure that we're following accounting guidelines. They're making sure that we're following all the different compliance. And believe me, there's a lot of different rules and regulations, federal, state, UTSA oriented, system oriented. Those folks are the ones that do all of that work for us. So you can already see there. I mean, we have openings for people in marketing, in sales, in accounting, really you can name the field. I was a public relations person. We have folks from the liberal arts that do different pieces on our team. We have folks from the sciences. So there is something in our work for just about anyone. And it doesn't all necessarily have to be what I would call forward facing. You don't necessarily have to be out there attending events and having to ask people for money or trying to build these relationships. There's a lot of work that we need around all of that to make all of it happen. So lots of opportunity, and those that might be interested in exploring it further, I'd be happy to talk to anyone, at any point.
As I forget to unmute myself. So in the area of advancement, what does success look like? Like if you, as an employer of a staff or as an employee, like what does success look like? How is performance evaluated? Are there, for example, unspoken expectations for the role in advancement?
Yes. So, our work, it's funny because while, a lot of folks may not even know that we exist on a college campus, our work is actually quite visible. And the metrics around it are also quite public and visible. So there's, all of our colleges and units have financial, funding needs, and we're there to try to help create those. There's scholarship needs. So students that are here on scholarship, more than likely, all of that work came through our office and through the wonderful donors that we work with. So every year we have a certain goal that we're trying to meet. We know what the budget is for the university. We know what the potential gaps are, or the funding needs to help us get to a certain level. So when Dr. Amy came, for example, and the university built its strategic plan, we knew that the funding, the current budget could take us, say this far, but to become an R1, we needed to be here. And so where would we, find some of that gap funding? Some of it comes through research, through federal and state grants and big grant dollars. But then the other piece comes through the philanthropy area. So we know every year we've got, X number of dollars. We've been averaging around $50 million a year in philanthropic funding over the last 5 years. So that gives you an idea of what we're trying to, what we're looking for every year. And we've been very fortunate some of these years. We've exceeded that. And then, but those are the expectations. That's the overall expectation of our team. Then obviously, as I said earlier, there's different pieces that people do across our division that help make that happen. If the donor's not having a good experience, so if our stewardship team, is not doing their work, then I may not be able to get another gift from them in the future. If there's different expectations that they're looking for from a tax standpoint, and we didn't do the job on getting them the right receipting or the right, thing. So if any piece doesn't do their job, then the overall giving experience is not good for our donors, and it hurts us in meeting our goals. So all of our teams then know what their piece is, and every year we do a strategic planning process of our own to say, these are the areas where we need to, do better. These are the areas where we're really doing great, and we consider ourselves a learning team. We're always trying to see how we can be a little bit better than we were yesterday, and I think our team does that really well. We've really professionalized this shop a lot, and I'm really happy with where we're headed. And now with the integration with UT Health, it's the work ahead of us is really exciting.
Absolutely. And when you started, if you can correct me if I'm wrong about the timeline, but that President Amy was already planning, which I think you were already working in your consultant role on this, but a major campaign, right? Like you came
That's right.
in to spearhead a major campaign, which was, I believe, soft launched within that year. I think within just a few months, because I remember attending the kickoff party
Yes.
downtown around Christmas.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. No, that's right. Yes, he had already kind of socialized a $500 million 10-year fundraising effort. So that was already out there. I knew what I was, getting into as I came on board. And I'll be honest, there were some folks that didn't think we could do it. They thought maybe we could get to around 350 million based on kind of historical giving. But I've just been so heartened and frankly amazed by the way that our donors have stepped forth. To name 2 colleges within the first couple of years of the campaign. We had the Mackenzie Scott $40 million gift that came, which again was not something that you could have planned for. That was just a very fortunate happenstance, but she was so impressed with what was going on at UTSA around student services and student support that inspired her to do that. So we'd be lucky at most universities to experience any one of those things in a career. So to have all of those things and then more, happen over the last 5 years, it's just been an incredible run here. And again, I just feel so fortunate to have been here during this time and be a part of it all.
So how since it is a 10-year campaign, and we're 4 going on 5 years in, how close are you and your team?
So I appreciate the question, John. And we've been pretty public about this. So not
Right.
that I'm sharing, I'm not sharing too many secrets here, but we actually feel, pretty confident. You never take it for granted. So I'll knock on wood as I say that, but we feel pretty confident that we'll actually finish the campaign in 2025 into the fall. And that's 2 years ahead of schedule. So we'll actually finish the $500 million effort in 8 years, which, again, I pinch myself when I say it. It's been so great to see how folks have stepped up. And we were looking yesterday, 74% of the donors to this campaign are first-time donors to UTSA. I mean, that is just an amazing number. And but it says a lot for the trajectory that we've been on and how inspired people have been to see everything that, Dr. Amy and the leadership team and you and all of the faculty and staff and students across the campus have made happen in these last few years. It's just an incredible run, and I'd put it up against any university in the country. I mean, our trajectory. And so folks, they like to support a winner, and we've definitely benefited from that.
Well, and I know, and just so our attendees are aware, your area, obviously directly impacts the ability for student success. As you mentioned, one of the gifts was for student success. But you also, your area also handles, like, for example, endowed scholarships, correct? If someone wants to set up an endowed scholarship, which in a sense takes care of itself over its lifetime. There's a minimum amount to get it up to that point where it can self-sustain. But then moving forward, it takes care of itself and is, applied to, these things are the things UTSA students can apply to.
That's right. Yes. Endowments are incredibly helpful to a university. And if you look at the great universities in the country, the one thing they all have in common is a sizable endowment, because they make the magic happen. And that's both faculty endowments and student support, endowments. And like you said, these things stand in perpetuity, and they'll continue to grow whether or not someone ever gives another dollar to them, which is the other magical thing. In the last campaign, we had an endowment, for example, that was funded at $20 million, which was one of the largest gifts in the previous UTSA campaign. That fund right now sits at something over, I think, $80 million. So you think about just that growth and the number of scholarships that are being created out of that. Every year we get to add another number of scholarships. So over time, that's what makes those endowments so powerful.
That's awesome. So what do you feel like as a advancement, fundraising, development professional, what are some of the biggest challenges you and your team face?
To get folks to be inspired, to give their hard-earned, dollars to support us, whether that be, a $50 gift annually or, a 20 million or $100 million gift, regardless. They have to have a real belief in the power of whether that be the university itself, higher education in general, what it does, with the impact that it makes on society. And, so I'd be this conversation around, this national conversation around the strength of higher education or the viability of higher education or any of that, that's something that we have to overcome. Now, again, most of our donors, they're bought in. They know how it changes lives and impacts the community. But it's those future donors, those that you're trying to inspire to give, you want them to continue to have a real confidence in the future of higher education. I think one of the things that helps us at UTSA is that people, they see it, it's tangible. They can see the difference that it's making across, San Antonio. They see the growth, the new buildings, they see new programs, they see athletic programs that are winning nationally. I mean, so it's been, we benefit from that greatly. And now with the integration with UT Health, there's this added component around how we can impact, new areas of people's lives. And so So that's something. But as long as people see the power of what a higher education experience can do for folks, I think we will continue to be on a strong trajectory in our fundraising area.
That's great. So if anyone that's in here has decided, well, that something you said struck a chord, and maybe they never thought about advancement as a career in business, but now they're thinking, what would be some final thoughts for them?
Yeah, again, that to sit down with any of us on our team and just talk about all the different possibilities, all the different types of jobs and positions that we have. There's a great fulfillment in our work. Again, I was walking across campus earlier this morning to a meeting, and it's great to, as you see the names of donors on walls, or I'm reminded daily when I see students that I imagine, several who may be here on scholarship support, as I see our faculty and the work that they're doing, and I know that it's an endowment that's helping to support their research or their work. You really get a feeling of, I'm helping make a difference for a lot of different people's lives, for the future of our society, for, even though I, Karl Miller Lugo, myself, I may not have the talents to do that, I still get to support that work. So it's very fulfilling work. It's happy work. And so, yeah, I would just, encourage people that, or just remind people that there are a lot of jobs out there, whether they be in our division or other areas, either across this campus or across this city, that aren't, jobs that you would normally hear about, but they can make incredible careers. I've had an incredible, career. I've had so many wonderful experiences. I get to interact with incredible, change makers that ordinarily in any other job, I probably would never get a chance to, even be anywhere near their table or their home. And so, yeah, I would encourage you to check some other things out there other than maybe just the traditional jobs that people hear about every day.
Perfect. So anyone in here, anyone that's watching on YouTube, just know that if you want to end up as a vice president at a university over advancement and alumni, all you need to do is start by going to Disney University and get a doctorate.
That's it. Set you up for a great career.
Well, thank you so much, Karl. I will be stopping the recording and we're going to open it up to questions.
All right. Thank you, John.